Whenever there's a bad take in the One Piece community, I just think, it's probably just agenda piece. Agenda piece, people are just trolling, having fun with it. But no, sometimes you have these bad takes that really just make you head scratch, like I'm doing right now, and think, are they reading One Piece at all to make these kind of bad takes? Like, seriously, I see some of these takes, I'm thinking, oh my god, I get it. People will have different interpretations based on certain things. But when you have certain interpretations that are just horrendously bad because you have this gripe against this one character, right? Or what this one plot point is and whatever, and you create this bad take because maybe you don't like this character or you prefer another character, but you hate that this character is getting the shine for it. And I gotta say, if you're a Nami fan, you probably have experienced this at least once in your life on social media as a Nami fan, right? And it's just frustrating. It's always frustrating to hear takes like this. So this episode on Bad Take Central, we're gonna look at a bad take that a TikToker had, that essentially said that Nami, out of the 4 characters that they talked about in the video, does not at all move the plot of One Piece at all. Like, she is not as important as other heroines of their series in terms of moving the plot at all, which is an insane take to make. Now, the 4 characters that they included in their video was Sakura from Naruto, Rukia from Bleach, Nami from One Piece, and Makima from Chainsaw Man. Now, I can tell you and talk to you about Sakura and Rukia. I cannot tell you much about Makima, so I will not head in that direction, simply because I don't follow Chainsaw Man. I saw like a couple episodes, but I can't really have an opinion on it because I have never watched it. Which, if you're saying that Nami does not move the plot along, maybe you should also have that same sentiment. Now, of course, you probably have, or anyone who has this take probably has read One Piece, but they look at it through these lenses that really just, for some strange reason, try to create some Nami erasure because they don't like Nami. And most of it comes from this idea that Nami is abusive, which is not at any point true. If Nami was abusive, it would be shown, it would be viewed as such by the author, by the rest of the Straw Hats, right? But it is a gag. There's a difference between what a gag is in terms of slapstick comedy and what is abuse. You see what actual abuse is in the One Piece story. You see it with actual Nami when she was enslaved by Arlong. You see it with Robin. You see it with Yamato. You see it with a bunch of characters. You even see it with Sanji. Right? When he's locked up in the cage, he has this fucking metal mouth guard thing, whatever. That's abuse. What Nami does is not. It's slapstick comedy. It's a gag by Oda. You may not like the gag. That's perfectly fine. But calling it abuse and using it as a way to slander Nami, that's a different story. But this idea that Nami does not move the plot along at all is just such an asinine take because you are just completely ignoring everything Nami has done throughout the story. In fact, if you literally do not at all have ever read this story, you wouldn't even, you for some reason do not see what the entire East Blue arc was about, right? The East Blue arc was about, the beginning journey of Luffy and, the East Blue 5. But what put the East Blue 5 together, make them join together to finally be part of the crew? It was Nami's arc. It was the Arlong Park arc. It's literally one of the biggest arcs in One Piece, where it expands throughout the entire East Blue arc. The moment that Luffy interacts and meets with Nami, you already set the plot for the rest of East Blue. You automatically already do, because literally everything that happens in the East Blue arc, aside from Luffy gathering his crew and meeting his crew for, the start of his pirate adventure, it's literally all pointing towards that final arc in the East Blue, aside from Logtown. But Logtown is like it's kind of like the finale because it's essentially going into about the whole Pirate King. But the real finale of the East Blue arc is finally going up to, what's it called? The Red Line to get into the Grand Line. But the final major arc of the East Blue saga is Arlong Park. it's really not that hard to comprehend, because everything that happens before Arlong Park arc essentially collides in Arlong Park, and eventually the entire crew, the first 5 members of the entire crew, are finally a pirate crew, the Straw Hat Pirates. And then they move on to the Grand Line and start the next big adventure in the Alabasta arc, right? Which, by the way, you will also know that Nami also plays a pivotal role, because she's the one who essentially, negotiates the deal to help bring Vivi over to Alabasta. How do you miss that? How do you not see that Nami is the pivotal role in helping Vivi get to Alabasta? She gets sick and is still able to detect a goddamn cyclone while she's like almost dying, and is able to avoid disaster for the crew. And then they get to Drum Island, and because she gets sick, which is her driving the plot essentially, you get Chopper. Every single arc has a piece of Nami in it that helps move the plot along. If it wasn't for Nami and her navigational ability, she would not know how to get to Skypea. She's able to read the map, find out when the next knockup stream shows up, and then you go to Skypea. It's insane that so many people have this take that Nami does not do anything for the plot, that she doesn't provide anything that moves the plot along, when she is one of the driving forces for a lot of these sequences where they are able to get to these locations, and that allows the plot to move on, right? Like, it's you may not think it's the most important character involved in some of these arcs, but she is part of the driving force that leads to these arcs. And so many people miss that because they have this hatred for her, or they don't like her, or maybe they prefer another character and think that Nami having more preference is outshining them. That is a thing that happens. It's part of agenda piece. And it's also baffling that a lot of them don't realize that Nami has like the second most manga panels out of any of the Straw Hats. So this idea that she is not at all part of the driving force of the plot is insane. She may not be like at the top pedestal for a lot of people, right? Because it's always going to be Luffy's adventure at the end of the day, and he's the one who sets the course and the plot for the entire story. But Nami has part of that role as the driving force that gets people to the next island, or to the next big plot point, such as Vivi, or finding out what Robin is thinking, and telling Luffy, telling Zoro about what Robin is planning and why she wanted to sacrifice herself so they go to Enies Lobby. It's like, and think about it also this way. Nami has been involved in a lot of the decisions that Luffy has to wind up usually making. A lot of the times it involves her, Luffy, and Zoro in those decision making. Best example I could give you: Law meets with Luffy discussing, a partnership to bring down Kaido. Guess who's also there? Nami. While she is in Frankie's body, Nami is there. She is there to hear Law's, offer as well. She's there. And then she helps make the decisions as well, along with the other Straw Hats. It's like when people that read through this manga skip so much, because a lot of the times, and I get it because sometimes I do it too, they only care about like what a certain character does. I get that. But that doesn't mean you have to devalue another character just because that character is probably outshining your favorite character or the character you care about the most. It's such a ridiculous statement. Like, I can tell you a lot of reasons why I don't like Sanji as a character in particular, but I understand his importance. He's a left wing of the Pirate King. He is one of the strongest fighters in the crew. He's going to have a big implication in the final war. He's going to have a big fight. I can understand that, and I respect that, and I'm not foolish to think that he won't. I think he will have Conqueror's Haki of some kind, right? A lot of people who hate Sanji don't even believe that, but I do. I think he will have it at some point. I really do. But there's a difference between that and just pure hatred and trying to erase a character's importance because you don't like him. And that is so bad. That is and this take that Nami does not move the plot at all is just so wild. Now, unless the TikToker was talking about essentially out of all the 4 characters, she doesn't move the plot along as much as others. That's still wrong. In the case of at least Rukia and Sakura, for the most part, Sakura does play some role in the driving plot, but a lot of the times it's usually always about Naruto or Sasuke. Yes, she's part of Team 7, she's involved in a lot of things, but most of the time in the entire story, it's mostly Naruto and Sasuke that are moving the plot, not really Sakura, right? Like, oh boy, and I like Sakura. I don't even hate Sakura, and I'm like, there's a lot of things that Sakura does in the Naruto story that definitely help move the plot along, right? Like, asking Naruto to save Sasuke, even though Naruto was already, set on going to rescue Sasuke, it's still part of Naruto's motivation to help find Sasuke, right? Literally, that's what happens. And in regards to Rukia, she does play a pivotal role in moving the plot, but only halfway through the story. Aside from that, she kind of doesn't move the plot along much after that, right? It's like the first half of Bleach, she does move the plot a lot, but then the second half, she kind of doesn't, right? But Nami does it every single arc for the most part. It's insane that people want to erase stuff regarding Nami that it's just like, oh, God. Being a Nami fan is tough. Being a Nami fan is rough. And a lot of other fans of characters are going to probably say the same thing. That's rough being a fan of this character, right? But it's very hard being a Nami fan because there's so many more ops that Nami has, against other characters because they don't like, her personality, the fact that she hits other characters for gag purposes, slapstick comedy, or they prefer like Robin or Hancock or something like that, right? It's just an inherent thing that just like Nami gets attacked by so many different fandoms, and all just because she is loved by Oda and she is one of the characters that helps move the plot along in many different situations, right? She's not most of the time the main driving force because that's always going to be Luffy because it is his adventure, but she has a really important part in helping Luffy go and drive the plot, and that's important, and that's why it's such a bad take. So I know this is a hot take for a lot of people, and you know what, I respect whatever you like, I respect whatever you want to like about One Piece, but to lie and say that Nami doesn't have any sort of importance in moving the plot is just such a bad take because throughout the entire story she does, right? And I don't know, I really don't I don't know how to deal with that so much, but let me know what you think in the comments, and again, be civil. If you don't like Nami, I understand, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to like her, but at least be, civil about it in the comments. Even if you don't like her, at least respect that she does have a driving force in the plot and moving it. Even if you think it's very minimal, to say that she doesn't is just a really bad take, right? And maybe, what the person was trying to say is that compared to the other 4 characters, right? But Nami has been essential throughout all of One Piece, right? It's still a bad take regardless, right? So let me know what you think, and thank you so much for watching another episode of Bad Take Central. All right, bye bye everyone.